Go around the badger.
Hey everybody, it is the Angry Honey Badger here, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of my new favorite champions, and that is going to be Poppy. Now, Poppy, ever since her rework, is a lot more consistent and a lot more fun to play in my opinion. We're going for an early invade in this game. We're going to catch Blitzcrank, and we're going to get some good CC on him in combination. Typically, we would not start with our E at level 1, but when you are going to invade, having the ability to stun someone into a wall is very important. We'll talk about why her stun is crucial and why landing it is crucial as this game goes on, and as we talk about her build and the runes and masteries, and of course maxing order and pros and cons, all types of stuff. So let's talk about Poppy and what makes her so dang good now. But to kick things off, we're going to go ahead and start with runes and masteries. I'll bring those up on the screen right now. Take a look at it, pause it if you need to, and yeah, you can see we're going for certain things, and we'll talk about that as we go on. Obviously, we're going to get that health and those masteries, and there are runes. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Sounds good. Over to her abilities now. Let's talk about those. First, we have her passive, which is Iron Ambassador. Now, Poppy will periodically throw her buckler as her next basic attack, which will give her range on that and bonus magic damage. This is what you use on Poppy when you're playing her as a support to harass. It works really well. Also, you can then pick it up and it will grant you a shield. This is what makes it really good in the jungle and really everywhere to help deny damage if they are going to aggress on you. That shield is crucial in the jungle to pick up over and over. It helps you deny, helps you stay really, really healthy in the jungle too. It makes her a really good jungle because of it. That's why I like to play her there personally. Also, there's walls everywhere to stun things. Works quite well. Then next, let's talk about at rank 1, you would typically put a point into your Q ability. This is your Hammer Shock. You're going to deal damage upon using it, and it's going to slow enemies that are standing in it for a percentage for 1 second, and then it'll go off again and deal even more damage if they decide to stand in it again. So that's your Hammer Shock. We're going to max this out first. It helps you clear minions in lane. It helps you deal damage to enemies. It's just a good ability. It takes a second to get used to just because it feels rather short range, because it kind of is. You have to be on people to really use it, but it does work well, and it is good ability. At rank 2, we're going to put a point typically into Heroic Charge, and Heroic Charge is what dashes you into the enemy, dealing damage to them. If you do collide them into terrain, though, it will stun them for a brief moment, well, 1.6 to 2 seconds, depending on what ranks you have in it, and it's going to deal some bonus damage, too. So, you have to really, really practice Poppy and really land Heroic Charge effectively to get the most out of her kit. We'll talk about that more as this game goes on, but that's really the, when there's crucial things you want to do correctly on a champion's kit, that's one of them. You want to definitely land Heroic Charges in helpful manners. We'll go into it more in depth later. Now, at rank 3, we've put a point into Steadfast Presence, which is her W ability. This is going to give you your passive that gives you 12% more increased magic resist and armor. And then when you're below 40% health, you get 24% of that armor and magic resist increase. It doubles. And then when you activate it, you're going to gain movement speed for 2.5 seconds and a barrier around you that will prevent enemies from dashing. And it will knock them up and deal a little bit of magic damage to them if they try to do so. This is another really, really important part of her kit that really helps deny a lot of enemies in the game. Something that had been happening in League of Legends for the past 3 years is champions kept getting more and more dashes, and those dashes have made it difficult on other champions. Now they've been introducing champions that have ways to kind of prevent those dashes, and this is one of the big ones, is Steadfast Presence. Using this to stop a Diana from diving in, or a Lee Sin from diving in if he landed his Q on a high priority target. It's really, really good to break up their engagement. And using this correctly too in a team fight can really kind of stop them up front and help you as a team kind of regroup and maybe counter engage what they were trying to do. So very important ability too to also learn and when to use, not just used as movement speed to get into a fight, but maybe in the middle of a fight to stop what they want to do when they try to set up their combination of CC. Works really well. And then of course you have her ultimate, which is the Keeper's Verdict, that you can channel up to 4 seconds. And if you don't want to activate it, you don't have to, and you will get 75% of the channel refunded, the cooldown on it. So don't be afraid to not cast it. You can also use it to scare people away and then not cast it and get most of it back. But if you do cast it, you'll smash the ground, sending out a shockwave that will kick those enemies back towards their base, dealing damage to them. It's a really good way to separate teams or break off engagements, or make something that was a 5v5 maybe into a 3v5, or just kicking out somebody who's annoying. Kick out that front line or kick out that assassin. Another really important thing to practice and land since it is a skill shot, you want to be careful with it. You don't have to charge it, though, if you just want to be on top of somebody's face and just kind of tap it. You'll just knock them straight up into the air and deal some damage to them. That way you don't kick them away if you want to finish them off and just like one more auto later. So you don't always have to kick people away. But that is our keeper's verdict. Now, let's talk a little bit about why it's important to do certain things with her kit. For example, we did talk about how the heroic charge is something you want to learn really well, because if you don't stun people into walls, it's not that it doesn't help, but you can actually hurt your team that way. For example, if you're coming in to hit someone into a wall and you don't because you just missed or you're bad or you're whatever, it just was a bad setup, and you push them further away from your team, you're kind of giving them like a flash escape. If they're not close enough, that one auto is going to finish them afterwards. You're going to be helping them get away. It's really unfortunate. That's one of the reasons why you really want to get the stun down. The other reason is, too, if you do use heroic charge and you don't stun them, and let's say you're pushing someone back into your team, if your team can't capitalize on killing them immediately after you've done that, the problem you run into is that they're alive and they maybe are now in a position to kill your back line. If I was to push a Diana into my Callista this game, or like really, really into her, which I will later to a certain degree, but it's because we want to kill her, the problem we would run into is you're delivering an assassin to your squishy people in the back line. You got to be careful with doing that. So it's really important to practice using heroic charge. And sometimes there's no good time to use it, and therefore using it is not a good thing. Hold on to it. They'll set themselves up in a position to letting you use it in a position later. Don't just dive at the opportunity to use it immediately. So you got to be really careful with heroic charge. Because if you also do land the stun, it's a lot easier to land the hammer shock and get all the damage off that and the slow on that. And it really becomes a bigger problem for them. And the burst that Poppy has, even being tanky, shows. And people really question, like, why does Poppy have so much damage? No. Poppy only gets all that damage if she lands all of her abilities in the correct way, which we do want to do. If you don't, the damage isn't really outrageous. But if you do it, you get some damage, and that's really nice. Now, we will be building damage on Poppy. Let's take a look at the direction the build is going now that we've talked about probably the most important thing with Poppy. We are going to do Cinderhulk. I like Cinderhulk on Poppy. It's quite good. We obviously get that 300 bonus health, too, from killing monsters in the jungle, what we have in our Masteries. And then that's going to team up with our Cinderhulk a lot early, and that's going to give us a lot of good damage early that we typically... or good health early that makes us tanky, and that's the benefit there. Also, Poppy tends to live for a good amount of time in team fights, or just in general all the time, and she has a lot of passive damage with having that burn around her, so apart from just, Cinderhulk helping us deal some minor damage, it actually becomes significant in long extended team fights because you're going to always have that burn going for you because Poppy lives a long time. Now, what we do with this to team up more health and more things, like that stun was pretty crap. I didn't stun him anywhere. I actually pushed him a little bit more into my ADC, but we were able to finish him off because it was just the one. Teleport in, stun him into the wall. He's not really going anywhere, slowed. He has to use his ult to get away. So, better on the second one. Pretty terrible on the first one. But besides that, the items that we go for after then are going to be a combination of offense and defense. Those are the ones we like. And it's kiteable things. Like they're, luckily, because we have finished off our Iceborn Gauntlet, that was a easier way to get rid of Diana, or to get her to slowly have a problem getting to our Callista. That is the second item we finished. We did start part of what we're going to build next, which is a Titanic Hydra. We do have that first part of it. Gives us health. Also gives us some pretty good sustain, too, off that. And a little bit of damage, but we'll go Titanic Hydra after we have finished our Iceborn Gauntlet. We typically probably wouldn't actually rush our Iceborn Gauntlet as fast, but their team has a handful of attack damage, and I actually really, really wanted that kite and peel potential with the Iceborn. So I rushed it a little bit quicker. That's why I had the first half of my Titanic. But now, since I've finished it, I'm going to go for Titanic. If you don't want Titanic, there is a good option. Or you can pick them both up and get one of them earlier and get one of them later. If you don't want the Titanic, the Black Cleaver works just about as well. A little bit different depending on what you want. Titanic's going to give you just a little bit more, uniqueness, whatever. Black Cleaver going to give you actually 5 more attack damage and some cooldown reduction, which is good. We're already getting a little bit anyways from our Iceborn. But it's going to give you more armor shred. So if their team is really building a lot of armor, then maybe a Black Cleaver would be what you want over Titanic. Titanic's going to give us a little bit more AoE damage, though, which is never a bad thing. Now, this fight... Is this the bad fight? No. Bad fight's coming up in a second. No, this is the bad fight for us. We're having a hard time peeling. We've missed almost all of our abilities. Alistair gets ripped out of the fight. Lucian went hard, flash forward, and got the kill on Callisto, so we lost her. Then we kind of tunnel onto him, and we leave Lulu to die, and then Diana was able to live in the back line. And Jax got caught out first, and we had just gotten Baron. And that's why it's important to try to land some of those abilities. Make sure you land those heroic charges. Make sure you knock away the correct people. If we would have been able to land maybe 1 or 2 of those, would have probably changed that team fight quite drastically. But we weren't able to, and we lost our Baron buff, which is unfortunate. Luckily, they weren't able to get a lot off of that. It's a really, really, really even game at the moment. We have a little bit more global gold than they do, though. But you got to be really careful. That's why it's important to learn those things on Poppy really, really well. We have finished off Titanic Hydra, and we have decided to go with Boots of Swiftness. Now, I know they did just get nerfed a little bit. They're still decent on Poppy, honestly, because it does help her get into position and stay active in fights. If you did need to go with Ninja Tabby or Merc Treads, both good options. I think, honestly, any 3 of those are really, really good. Swiftness could be used for more snowballing purposes. The other ones are obviously more defensive. So you got to be careful on which boots you want. Make sure you just read what they have. Lots of CC. You might want the Mercs. If they're all AD, you might want the Ninja Tabby. Just pay attention to that. Here, we did just push Diana into nothing, but that was just to get her off of our ADC. Sometimes you will use it just to peel, even if it's not going to stun him. But we'll be able to clean her up and Blitzcrank after that fight. Or during that fight. We'll be able to clean this game up too in a second. Now, when it comes to final items, I really wanted to probably go Banshee's Veil this game, but instead I decided that I'm just going to go for a GA just based on the way these team fights are going, and I do have enough damage that I can contribute a good amount to killing someone, so I decided to go GA, but a Banshee's Veil would be a very good option here too, to get rid of some burst damage and obviously to prevent certain things, such as if I had Banshee's Veil up and this enemy Malphite did ult, we'd be able to negate that if we had the charge up. So we want to get knocked up, then we could use our CC, and all would be well for us. But we decided to go GA, just as good. Also gives us more armor, and once again, they do have Lucian. They do have somebody else too. Armor's always a good thing. Why not? But there are multiple options if you wanted to go with like an AP defensive item, or not AP defensive, but magic resist defensive item like a Maw that still gives you some damage. That's also not a terrible choice. Something else you could definitely pick up. But really, Black Cleaver, Iceborn, Titanic, and then, and one other defensive item I really like, Dead Man's Plate, if you want more armor with some more movement and some damage. That's another good one for helping Poppy get into position and deal damage. All of those items that I've talked about are all really good on her. Those are like the key ones I really like. Iceborn and 1/2 tank damage item with Cinderhulk really sets you up well with Poppy. I hope this build helps you all out. If you have questions, leave them down below in the comments, and I'll see all of you in the next build video.